It's 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting for the Traffic and Transportation Commission on May 21st to order. Roll call. Commissioner Witcher.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Littlefield. Present. Ward 3 is vacant. Commissioner Hale, I'm sorry. Here, sir. Hall. Commissioner Schuline. Here. Commissioner Jenkins. She's absent. Commissioner George.
Here.
And our at-large is also vacant. I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes of the April 16th, 2012 meeting.
I'll make the motion to approve.
And we have a motion from Commissioner Witcher to approve the minutes of April 16th meeting, and it's seconded by Commissioner Hale. Do we have any comments? May I have your votes, please? Okay. All right. Minutes are approved. So you weren't here, so you abstain, okay? We have an abstain from Commissioner Schuline because he wasn't here. Okay, the report on license and taxi and record service will be done in July. There's no items on the consent docket. First item, item 5A, Barbara Talent, Superior Medical Transit, LLC, 412 South Mustang Suite A, Yukon, Oklahoma, 73099, to consider an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity from Barbara A. Talent, Superior Medical Transit, LLC, 412 South Mustang Road, Suite A, Yukon, Oklahoma, 73099, to operate 2 medical transport vehicles and a van service. We have someone that wants to speak on this one. Brad? May I have your name and address, please?
I'm Brad Beatty. I'm representing Barbara Talent, president of Superior Medical Transit. The address is 412 South Mustang Road. That's Yukon, 73099.
Thank you, sir. You have 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Up to.
Just like to ask that you accept the application as presented. It's for a non-medical wheelchair transit here in Oklahoma City. We have 2 very nice Mercedes vans that's going to be top of the line to serve the community's health needs for transportation needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. Do we have a motion concerning 5A? We have a motion to approve from Commissioner George.
Second.
And we have a second from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have any talk on this item? Do we have staff recommendation?
You've got a staff recommendation before you. We're going to recommend approval of the application as submitted. The Municipal Counselor's Office has reviewed the application from Barbara Talent and found that it's in conformance with the requirements set forth in Section 5623. So, staff recommends approval.
Okay, so we have a motion for 5A from Commissioner George to approve, and it's seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Is there any other talk on the item? May I have your votes, please? Item is approved. Item 5B, Rick's Transpo, LLC, 321 North Country Club Road, Newcastle, Oklahoma, 73065, to consider an application from Rick's Transpo, LLC for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate 15 vehicles in limousine service. Do we have someone who wants to speak on this? Ricardo? I'm sorry? Okay, thank you very much, sir. Okay, we have nobody who wants to speak on that. Do we have a motion concerning item 5B? Motion to approve. We have a motion from Commissioner Hale to approve item 5B. And we have a second from Commissioner Schuline. Can we have staff's recommendation, please?
Okay, you've got a complete application before you. We recommend approval of the application for public convenience and necessities presented. I do want to make note that on page 3 of the report, under the recommendations, there is a typographical error where we had referred to the company as DT Limousine Service. It will actually operate under the name of Rick's. So that was just a typo.
Very good. Is there any talk on this item from the commissioners? Okay, we have a motion on item 5B from Commissioner Hale to approve, and it's seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Item is approved. Item 5C, Traffic Management Division, 420 West Main Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73012, to consider the addition of stop control on North Sepulta Avenue at its intersection with North Shawnee Avenue in order to establish all-way stop control. Do you have anybody who wants to speak on that item? Do we have a we do. Constance, ma'am, yes, would you please state your name and your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Constance Tice, 5948 Sepulpa Avenue, Oklahoma City, 73112. And it's good to see you again. I am just here again to ask that this be considered to not be added to the street. I had hoped that my principal of the school across the street could be here today, but he's had a death in the family. And if it's at all possible, and I hesitate to ask you because I know this is really drawn out, but is there any way to put it on to next month so you have a chance to speak with him? Because he was coming, but he couldn't.
Did you happen to be able to talk to the school when your people went out there?
Well, when we did observation out there, we advised the school that we were working in the area, just so that they would, they wouldn't, if they had a report that there was, someone that was out of the ordinary hanging around the school, that they would know that it was representatives from Traffic Management Division out there doing traffic observation.
Mm-hmm. Hey, ma'am, is there anything else? Is there anything else?
Are you saying?
Yeah, is there anything else?
No, just I ask that if you could put it off one more month, possibly until next month.
Okay.
And that's okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, we have item 5C. Does there anybody have a motion for 5C?
I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5C from Commissioner Littlefield. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Schuline to approve item 5C. Is there any talk from the commissioners?
My comment would be that even though all of the traffic study and common sense seems like we ought to go ahead and put a stop sign there, that the expectation of the normal driver is that there ought to be a stop sign added, that it's gone without one long enough. Could it hurt for us to defer for 1 month and possibly get the input of the principal, and if there's some other folks in the neighborhood, could it hurt just to get those voices heard before we make a decision on this?
Okay. We have staff summary of, just before we press on with it, why don't we get the staff summary of what started this and what they did this last month?
Okay, well, you've got pretty much a comprehensive history on on how this matter came to our attention. At the beginning of this month, we went out and did a morning observation because I coordinated with the school to find out whether what time classes started and what time they ended, and to make sure that when we observed, we were observing the busiest time periods around the school, because I think there was some concern that the addition of a stop sign on Sepulpa at Shawnee might cause some congestion related to traffic leaving the school, but all the days of our observation found that there wasn't enough traffic that was headed north up Sepulpa away from the school that it would have any influence at all, no measurable influence at that intersection. As a matter of fact, if you look through the comments on basically our observations that are on pages 2, 3, and 4 of the report, you'll see that there's it's kind of a mixed bag as to how drivers react at the intersection, because they don't expect to come up as being the side street and having the right-of-way. So, I've seen everything from some drivers passing through the intersection under the impression that, that traffic on Shawnee, which had the stops, was going to stop, and others which were less certain, and they some of them stopped, and one driver in particular even waved others through that had the stop control. So it's kind of a mixed bag, and since there seems to be a little bit of hesitation and uncertainty as to how the intersection ought to be signed, the addition of stop sign on Sapulpa at this intersection would not harm anything. And this also happens to be a location where we observed 3 kids that walked to school, and they crossed Sapulpa right on at this intersection, and they crossed it on the uncontrolled approach. So, based on the fact that there was not a noticeable amount of traffic that goes through it that would be impacted by the addition of a stop sign, and the fact that it is a route to school for some of the kids in the area that do walk, that's why with Traffic Management Division is recommending the addition of stop sign on Sapulpa where it intersects with Shawnee.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments from the commissioners?
I guess I have a comment or two. I guess the only, it looks like you just went out in the mornings, not in the afternoons for the pickup times.
We did both.
Oh, you did? Okay, I didn't see the times written on this report, but I guess I just overlooked it. So the pickup time was the one that would be where everybody comes at once. Drop-offs are always easier. Everybody's coming within a 20-minute window. Pickups are all bam. So the pickups, you didn't have any lined up, and it was all fine?
No, actually, most of the parents that arrived and waited for pickup were either pretty much at the school or a little bit to the south of it. So, but when north of there, on Shawnee or on Sapulpa, leading up towards Shawnee, there wasn't really any stopped school traffic. No parents waiting in the pickup area there.
Well, that's what I wanted to see from last month. The other question, I guess, doesn't look like there's any crosswalks painted. You said there's kids crossing there. If there isn't, can we get some painted on? Is that city? That's something we'd want to do?
Yeah,
let's say 3 kids are crossing there every morning. We probably need a crosswalk, don't we?
Well, it's not required to cross or to have a crosswalk in a residential area striped. We can certainly get that done.
Okay.
Sir?
It makes sense to me that at an intersection like this, that it be perfectly clear what all 3 directions are supposed to do, that there's no ambiguity. And if there were a situation where traffic was backing up, it's still every 3rd opportunity to clear that. If it were a traffic control light, for example, and there was an extended period of time where we're red and nobody could clear that, I could see where that would be an issue. But to have a 3-way stop, and if folks do the appropriate thing, it just makes sense to me that this stop sign go up.
Hey, is there any other comments from the commissioners? Yes, ma'am. Yes, please. Uh-huh.
If you decide to do this, can it be taken into consideration to make that during the hour morning and the hour in the afternoon, make that one block, piece of the block, up to the school a one-way street during certain times?
The action before the commission today is just for the installation of the stop sign. Now, you might want to go back and talk to the principal to see if they want to pursue, if the school would like to pursue something like that, because to make a change like that is something that the city would want to do in concert with the school to make sure that would work with whatever traffic circulation plans that they may have. So we wouldn't just want to do that in the absence of the school's input.
Well, I apologize that he's not here today, because I think he could explain to you the situation we might have in hand when the stop sign goes up. But if you do this, and it looks like you will, we'll just take it from there and figure out what to do to keep it down.
And the school year's about done.
Yes, it's
And
about over, so they've done
it would just go through the summer, it would get put up, and then when school starts, it would be there. And if for some reason you would see after a month or so that it is a major problem, then you'd have to report back, and then we see what happens there.
Okay. All right.
Very good.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Okay, is there any other talk from the commissioners? Okay, we have a motion on item 5C to approve from Commissioner Littlefield and seconded by Commissioner Schuline. May I have your votes, please? Okay. You have that? Very good. Item 5D, Carabeel, 5609 Northwest 124th Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73142. Consider request for the installation of a traffic signal at the intersection of Hidden Creek Boulevard and Northwest 122nd Street. Do you have somebody that wants to speak on this issue? No, we don't. Can I have a motion concerning item 5D?
I'll move to disapprove.
We have a motion from Commissioner Witcher to disapprove item 5D.
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Hale to disapprove. May we have staff input, please?
Okay, we've got our full report before you. The location doesn't satisfy any of the 9 criteria in the manual and uniform traffic control devices for the consideration of a traffic signal. There aren't any view obstructions. There aren't any mitigating circumstances like an unusual collision history to be aware of at this particular location. So in the absence of meeting any of the signal warrants or any unusual physical constraints at the intersection, such as like limited sight distance, staff doesn't have any cause to recommend approval of the request for the signal at this time.
Do we have any other talk on this item?
I'd just make a comment about it, I guess. I'll agree with everyone on not approving it at this time. Obviously, this is a growing area of Oklahoma City. That subdivision is like a lot of new subdivisions with one entrance, and that's everybody comes in and out of that one spot. So I'm sure the light may not meet the criteria that the city has set up, but the people that are living there, I'm sure, are looking for something as a convenience. That, at 8 o'clock in the morning or quarter till 8, I'm sure it's really difficult. You have people lined up to get out. And 122nd is somewhat, is fairly busy there, even though it's not busy enough. So it's hard to get out. So and that is just an issue that the city has, I think. Putting a traffic light in as a convenience. Is that for a neighborhood? Just for easier in and out. I don't know if the city has any policy about that, or if they just rely strictly on the numbers, or what.
Well, we rely on the manual on uniform traffic control devices for guidance because they kind of set national standards for when like government units should consider different forms of traffic control, whether it be like signed traffic control using stop signs or yield signs, or using something like a traffic signal. And in an instance like this, there's not enough congestion or delay, which is causing people to sit and then on the side street and get to the point where they're starting to make maybe irrational decisions because they've waited long enough, and they're now willing to accept like a smaller gap in traffic in which to enter the traffic stream on 122nd Street. We're not at that point at this particular intersection. And when you consider all the intersections across the city, you have to have some means of vetting them with respect to what types of traffic controls should be installed there. Because, traffic signals serves a valuable purpose, but they're also relatively costly to install, and, they take long-term maintenance commitment on the part of the city. Right. And so therefore, when you get to have a traffic signal more as a function of convenience as opposed to a function of necessity in order to address something like inadequate decision sight distance, or to address a collision history, or you've got a significant number of left turns that you couldn't otherwise accommodate. That's stuff like that will come into play when you're considering it. But at this point in time, the level of development north of 122nd Street, granted, it will probably build out, and maybe someday in the future it may warrant a signal just based on traffic volumes, because there are 3 volume criteria in the manual. There's the 8-hour volume warrant, there's a 4-hour, and then there's a peak hour warrant. And at this particular point in time, this intersection doesn't meet any of them. And these criteria are also weighted based on the posted speed limit on the main street. And so even if we were to presume that like 122nd Street was posted higher than 40 miles an hour, you can start using a percentage of the original criteria and compare that to what your actual traffic volumes are. And what that percentage system does is it takes into consideration higher speeds and that sort of thing, and will basically make it easier for an intersection to meet some of the warrants. But this intersection doesn't meet anything at this point in time. It's just that far out.
Okay, thanks for your explanation, appreciate that.
It appears that Hidden Creek is what, about midway on 122nd between MacArthur and what would it be to the east? Would it be Hefner Parkway?
Meridian.
Meridian? Would that be too far of a spread to consider any type of light synchronization to help relieve the traffic, give a break in the traffic at all, an opportunity there for people to get in and out?
Well, it could. I mean, it's certainly far enough away, because ordinarily we don't, the preferred minimum spacing for traffic signals is about a quarter mile. So at a location where this one is, I mean, it could be considered based on that as a candidate location at some point in time. But at this point in time, there's, as far as coordinated signals go, there's not, the two intersections, the one over at MacArthur and the one over at Meridian are radically different, because Meridian is just a T intersection, because it doesn't extend south of 122nd. And MacArthur is just a full, 8-phase intersection with left turns on all approaches. Thought?
Yeah, Meridian's a stop sign, not a light. So everybody stops there.
Coming from the south, that's correct. I think we also ought to consider that if, this month it's Hidden Creek, and 6 months it's Bocage, and then it's Val Verde, and everybody wants a light to, make it easier for them to get out.
Okay, is there any other further talk on this item? Okay, item 5D, we have a motion from Commissioner Witcher to disapprove item 5D, and it's seconded by Commissioner Hale. May I have your votes, please? Okay, item is disapproved. Item 5E, Rick Kane, Director of Public Transportation and Parking Department, consider a recommendation to the Oklahoma City Council on an ordinance related to motor vehicles and traffic amending Article 11 of Chapter 32 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code, authorizing the Public Transportation and Parking Department to hood parking meters and provide for a hooding fee, and install parking meters, time periods and costs, indication of remaining time, indication of parking regulations, marking of spaces, manner of parking, parking without payment, parking for more than one time period, unlawful or unacceptable payment, tampering with parking meters, exception for vehicles transporting disabled persons, and repealing Section 32-376, parking at expired meter prohibited. Okay, that's item 5E. We have a Debbie Holtzclaw.
Yes, good afternoon. Debbie Holtzclaw, Parking Service Manager with the Department of Public Transportation and Parking Authority. So I'm here to answer any questions you
Okay,
have.
can I have your address, please?
300 Southwest 7th Street, Oklahoma City.
Okay, so you're just here if we have any questions. Okay, just a moment then. Okay, so we have item 5E. Do we have a motion concerning item 5E?
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Witcher to approve item 5E. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to second item 5E. Can we have staff?
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and read the report, because it pretty much summarizes a lot of what's the contents of the ordinance. The accompanying proposed ordinance amends several sections within Chapter 32 regarding metered parking. So the primary purpose of the ordinance is to update language within Chapter 32 to reflect the introduction and the use of electronic metered parking pay stations, which will be used to replace individual spaced mechanical parking meters. One of the fundamental differences between the city's current inventory of mechanical meters and the electronic metered parking pay stations is how the amount of time purchased for parking is displayed. Mechanical meters utilize mechanical clocks that display the amount of remaining time for parking. The electric metered parking pay stations issue physical receipts showing the amount of time purchased, the date and time when it was purchased, and an expiration date and time. Upon issue, the receipt has to be returned to the parked vehicle and displayed on the driver's side of the vehicle dashboard in accordance with the new section 32-371. The proposed ordinance also updates language regarding how users may pay for parking. Currently, the only valid means of paying for parking is by depositing coins into a meter. In section 32-378, the ordinance updates the language by generically broadening the description to cover other forms of acceptable payment methods. And Debbie Holtzclaw is here if you've got any more questions relative to this ordinance.
Okay, do we have any comments from the commissioners?
I guess the question I'd have is one per block, how far apart are they going to be placed? And are you just going to take up all the old parking meters and there'll just be one in the middle of the block, basically?
We'll be looking at the block size and how many spaces are there. We try to limit one pay station for about 6 parking spaces.
6.
So like on the Reno between Robinson and Hudson, that along Myriad Gardens, there'll be 2 on each side. There'll be 2 on the north side and 2 on the south side street.
So the furthest a person would have to walk is about 6 car lengths,
Shouldn't be any more than 5 or 6 cars.
somewhere in that region, then they walk back, put their little ticker, okay?
Yes.
Are we already testing it, or will this be the test?
This will be the test.
Okay.
No,
I thought I
these
saw
are all
something on the
over.
news about it, so I wasn't...
Yeah,
Are they doing
Parkeon.
Other cities?
Yeah, Parkeon has meters all over. In fact, they just finished a big installation in Fort Worth with the same meters.
You've seen the meters, and it's really clear, I suppose, that you take your ticket and put it back on your dash?
Yes, it actually will say on the receipt, it has a picture of where they're supposed to put it on their vehicle. And we're also working a media campaign where we will go out, and it will be in the utility inserts about the new meters and then how to work them. It's very simple. It tells them, how much money to put in, or, put your money in, how much time, and then print a receipt. So you push the button to print the receipt, and then you go.
I'm curious about the section that refers to hooding meters. If a contractor needs to use that part of a block to do several days' worth of work, they cover the meter, and then does this contractor pay a fee to the city
Yes.
for using those spaces? Could you explain that a
Yes.
little, please?
We've been hooding meters for some time. We just did not have, I think it's the next item, the administrative fee to cover those costs. But normally, yes, it's for like a contractor, let's say a company moving, they're bringing in a moving van, anything where they're needing to reserve spaces close to where they're working, we will go out and hood the meters, and then we charge that company the fee for those hoodings.
What would the fee be for hooding?
Right, well, we're proposing in the next item,
Yeah, the
that it's
next item talks about
$35,
fee.
$35 administrative fee, and then $10 per day.
Okay, do we have any more talk on
Just had a
item?
question, how extensive is this, and is it a part of Project 180?
Yes,
Or what
the
is-
meters were purchased, to replace all the meters that were pulled up and new spaces created with Project 180. Hopefully, with the mechanical meters that we have now, we are unable to purchase new parts. So this is something that I see, in the future going citywide, Bricktown and everything. But right now, we're starting with the Project 180 areas.
Okay, any more talk on item 5E? Okay, for item 5E, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Witcher, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. May I have your votes, please? Okay, item passed. Okay, item 5F, Rick Kane, Director of Public Transportation and Parking Department, consider a recommendation to the Oklahoma City Council on an ordinance relating to the general schedule of fees, amending Chapter 60 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010 by amending Section 60-32-36 to provide for a Project 180 time limit parking meter zone and parking fees for said zone by enacting new Section 60-32-37 relating to fees for hooding parking meters and providing a repealer. Okay, do we have anybody who wants to talk on that? Again,
I'm here again.
you're still here?
I'm still here.
You still live at the same place? All right.
Still at the same place.
All right, very good. Do we have a motion concerning item 5F?
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Witcher to approve item 5F.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Littlefield. We have a second from Commissioner Littlefield. We have staff recommendation.
Okay, I'll just give you an introductory summary. This ordinance amends several sections within Chapter 60 regarding the schedule of metered parking fees. The primary purpose of this ordinance is to establish a new Project 180 parking meter rate zone, and the streets in which are defined by the attachment to the proposed ordinance entitled Project 180 Time Limit Parking Meter Zones. This supplemental document specifies the streets, the limits along those streets, and the sides of the streets where the Public Transportation and Parking Department is recommending that 1- and 2-hour metered parking be established. Section 603236E is added to the proposed ordinance and establishes the rates for 1- and 2-hour parking on those streets included in the Project 180 time limit parking meter zones. Section 603237 is a new section was added in the proposed ordinance to establish an administrative fee for reserving metered parking spaces, referred to as hooding, and establishing a daily rate for reserved parking metered spaces. And Debbie Holtz-Claw is here to answer any questions you might have specific to the ordinance.
Okay, do we have any comments from the commissioners on this item?
I'm looking for the rate for hooding.
It was, I believe it was $35 to have it brought out and picked up, and then the cost per day was $10.
Yes, correct.
It's on page 6 of the agenda item. Under Article 11, metered parking, there's a section 603237 entitled Fees for Hooding Parking Meters.
I'm there.
And it's got the administrative fee and the daily fee.
Does the administrative fee include hooding and de-hooding?
No, that's the $10 a day.
Okay, that's the $10.
Yeah, the administrative fee, well, actually, it's both, because the administrative fee covers the cost of staff to go out and hood the meters, take the hoods off, and also our administrative staff on the billing and collecting the monies and all of that.
So
that's
yes,
where
it does do both.
Yes.
It'll cover the cost to go out there, put it on, the cost to go back out there, take it off, and then the cost to process the paperwork.
And if you needed a multiple meter space, that's per meter.
No, the $35 will be per request,
One-time
and the
deal.
$10 would be per meter.
With you. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other talk on this item? Okay, so item 5F, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Witcher, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? Item is approved. Okay, item 6, comments from citizens. Are there any citizens that wish to speak to the commission? Item 7, reports and other items. Let's go. Does anybody out there have any reports, items? Let's go through the different commissioners. Ward 1, Commissioner Witcher.
Don't have any reports. I'd just like to remind us that since we're famous for being the first city to have parking meters, that all of the meters that are taken down maybe have a monetary value to the city if somebody want to purchase them.
All right, Ward 2, Commissioner Littlefield. Do you have anything?
I don't necessarily have a report for my ward, but I have a comment that might have a response. Last month we heard an application in a neighborhood in way east side of the city where they had requested a stop sign at a T intersection. And unfortunately we didn't find that as the way to solve the problem. But I've seen in Nichols Hills, and I don't know if they're temporary or if they're permanent, but there are like solar-powered signs that actually report back to you what your speed is. And I can tell you, as I drive around and hit those things, I take notice. Is that available to the commission for installing anywhere?
Well, we've actually got some of those out in place right now on, I believe it's Northwest 36th Terrace. We've got some that will do that. They're considered like driver feedback signs. They'll have a sign above them that says that advises driver what the posted speed limit is, and then it flashes their speed. It feeds it back to them.
Would that be something that we could recommend in a situation like last month's, to help resolve their problem as opposed to putting in what they're actually applying for?
Well, right now we just use them kind of to re-educate drivers, remind them what they should be doing on the roads as opposed to what they are doing on the roads. So they're more of an educational tool at this point in time. They're not strictly for enforcement, but they do allow us to conduct speed surveys as well.
All right, anything else, sir? Okay. Ward 5, Commissioner Hill. Ward 6, Commissioner Schuline. Ward 8, Commissioner Joe. I'd like to report that I asked Mr. Chai about the bike routes that we approved a while back, and we were trying to get them out here in the springtime. Well, from what we hear, the contract, put the signs out, will start in the summer, sometime June, July timeframe, and then once they're ready, once they start going out, they already have press releases and things like that ready to go to educate everybody once the sign starts going up. And those will start just at the same time. So once the sign starts going up, the education will be ready to go. So I just thought I'd let you know that maybe here, June, July, we'll start seeing some stuff going on. Okay? And let's see here. Captain, do you have anything?
The intersection you were talking about is Kensington Way. We did have our motorcycle group and some of our overtime programs watch that. They have written some tickets, but nothing of any pattern that would create great alarm, so it's kind of been sporadic. So you wanted feedback on that since I wasn't here last month.
Counselor? Stewart?
You just have our standard reports on the installation of yield signs in various neighborhoods and parking restrictions. All of those are things that we do as standing reports in accordance with the Commission's standard operating policies and procedures. Okay. Other than that, although if any members of the Commission do have locations that they think might be good candidate sites, where they like to host some of our speed feedback, our driver feedback signs, you're more than welcome to give me a call, or any citizen can, and we see about deploying them in your neighborhood. They're just a short-term thing. They're there for, like I said, for education. They're not there for enforcement, but they do help remind drivers to do what they need to be doing on the roads.
Well, probably a good spot would be the place where you gave out 50 speeding in like 3 hours.
164th.
Is that where that was? That might be a good spot to move one. You remember where that one was?
It was 164th between Santa Fe and Western.
164th between Santa Fe and Weston, where they were out there and they rode over 50 in like 2-3 hours. Yep, that'd be a good spot. Okay, any other comments? Anything for the Commission? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion from Commissioner Schuline. See you next month.